Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this Friday afternoon, and there was a lot going on last night, not just with basketball. There was also the NFL draft that happened, so I was watching a little bit of that, while at the same time watching the Knicks. So I was watching both of my New York teams attempt to not screw up in any kind of way. I was making sure that the Knicks didn't end up losing, and I was making sure that the Giants ended up making their first pick in the draft actually mean something, because the Giants, they usually stink at that. But regardless, we'll talk about the playoff games that went down last night. So the first game that we're going to talk about is obviously going to be about the Lakers going down 0-3 in the playoff series against Denver. Then in the next segment, we're going to be talking about the Sixers being able to win a game at home against the New York Knicks. And then we're going to talk about the Orlando Magic being able to win a game at home against the Cavs in the third segment. We also have a special fourth segment at the end of the third segment that I like to reveal towards the end of the third segment. So stay tuned for that if you are interested in what that is. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. It is gsmcspodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcspodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about this Lakers game when they matched up against Denver last night. It started out looking like literally the story for every single game for the Lakers has been exactly the same. They started out looking good, and then towards the second half they started to slow down, and the Nuggets started to catch up, and eventually there was a point where the Lakers just forgot how to score, and that's when Denver capitalized on their comeback. So obviously, this was a combination of really bad decision making and really bad shooting for both sides of the ball in this game. But what was really staggering to me was just how slow and how undetermined their offense sort of was in the third quarter. I don't know what it was, but it didn't feel like they were really trying to run an offense in the third quarter. And when Denver was answering with bucket after bucket after bucket, the Lakers just weren't doing enough to answer back. And I feel like that third quarter was it really costed them later in the game when they really needed that production from them. And I'm just looking at the box scores real quick, and the Lakers and LeBron, LeBron and Anthony Davis, they played very well in this series, and so far this series, I can't really blame it on either of them because of the production that they're doing. The blame, it has to go on the teammates in this, because AD, he ended the game with 33 points and 15 rebounds. LeBron ended with 26 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. Obviously, these are very impressive numbers. And when you look at the field goal, percentage and the efficiency behind these numbers, that's even more impressive. But I don't know what it is with this team. It's just they can't win it, and they can't win a game. Austin Reeves, he played really well in this game. He had 22 points, was 8 for 17 from the field. But then D'Angelo Russell just goes 0 for 7. At home, he goes 0 for 7 and drops 0 points and literally just hinders the Lakers' performance throughout the entire game instead of helping it how is expected of him and how he's been helping the Lakers in the regular season. And it's this is the story every single time with LeBron. It's it's expected that the Lakers secondary and the Lakers next players up in the rotation are going to be a weak point. But what isn't really expected is the main excuse me. What really isn't expected with these Lakers is the main starting five that has been so formidable recently, letting them down when it matters most. Like I said, D'Angelo Russell was terrible, going 0 for 7 from the field. But Roy Hachimura, in all of these games, he hasn't really been that much better, and he hasn't really been producing good enough or as well as he can in the postseason either. In Game 2 against Denver, he ended up scoring only 3 points, playing 38 minutes, and he shot 1 for 7. In the first game against Denver, excuse me. In the first game against Denver, he only had 7 points and took only 4 shots. And now in this game against, in the most recent game against Denver, yesterday, he only ended up getting 5 points. So these, in the last 3 games, he hasn't been able to get 20 points. And it's been 3 games. That is not ideal for someone like Roy Hachimura. And this Lakers team, they need absolutely everyone to step up, and it can't be just LeBron and Anthony Davis doing all of that hard work. It just can't. And with how good the Denver Nuggets are, it just can't be 2 players that are doing all of the work, especially when you give up as many easy looks as they did to Aaron Gordon in this game. And remember how I said that this game sort of fell apart for LA when they went into the third quarter, when they went into the second half? That was sort of, Aaron Gordon was the main catalyst to the Denver Nuggets in that half. Now, Aaron ended the game with 29 points and 15 rebounds. So the fact that he's even able to get that many points with the shots that he takes and like the amount of dunks and layups that he attempts, it's really like, it's unacceptable how many open looks they allow Aaron Gordon to have in this game and how many open looks they allow Aaron Gordon to have in general. Part of it has to do with the amazing playmaking from Jokic, but another part of it also has to do with just the pitiful defense that I'm seeing from the Lakers, because it's not like they're really bothering to like try and stop him when he goes into the paint. So Jamal Murray, he ended the game with 22 points and 9 assists. Nikola Jokic ended the game with 24 and 15. Michael Porter ended the game with 20 and 10. And that was basically all all the important scores for this Denver Nuggets team and for the matchups that they've had. Again, this is like, you don't really need to have that much scoring from the starters when the other team doesn't really have that much production that they're getting from their starters. So the fact that they only had 4 notable players in the scoring column for this game, it was more than enough to get them the win, because the Lakers, they really only had like 3, and 2 of them were actually efficient from the field. And that's another problem that's been sort of plaguing these Lakers. It's their lack of efficiency in closing out a lot of these games. That's what made this team a championship team, and that's sort of like that was the big difference maker between the Lakers in 2020 and every other team. It was the fact that these Lakers were able to close out games whenever they had a lead. When they would have a lead, it was very rare that the Lakers would give it up, and they knew how to close out. Now it sort of seems like the opposite for this game, where it's, for the series, where it's like the Lakers, they can't close out a game. And they've been up almost every single time at the half, and they just can't seem to get it done for whatever reason it might be. And again, it was mainly that third quarter that killed them in this game. And it was the third quarter that killed them in the previous game as well. And then it was also, like, obviously the final shot. There's really nothing that you can really do to stop someone from making that difficult shot. But they had a huge lead in the half of Game 2, and they just couldn't close out. It seemed like it was going to be a pretty simple and easy victory for the Lakers in this game, but it really wasn't, and they ended up blowing a 20-point lead, which obviously it's not ideal. when you're the Lakers. So now you are in a 3-0 hole with the stigma that no team in the history of basketball has ever come back from being down 3-0. And the Celtics, they almost did it last year, but they ultimately ended up losing in the 7th game at home in a blowout loss. So, like, the odds aren't really in LeBron's favor for this game. And he's come back from 3-1 before, which was a deficit that nobody has come back from in the finals. But coming back from 3-0 is a completely different story because no one has been able to do that in the history of the game, and let alone in the first round. So asking LA to come back from 3-0 is going to be a very daunting task for them, especially when they still have players in their rotation that just aren't playing as well as they should be. So I've been trying to sort of brush it off because it's like, okay, it's LeBron, they'll figure something out. But I genuinely don't think that they will figure something out against these Nuggets. And of all the series that could be played right now in the first round, I didn't want to say it then because I just wasn't sure. But in hindsight, this did seem like the most likely series that would end up in a sweep coming in from Denver. If there was any team that was going to pull off a sweep, it was going to be the Nuggets against the Lakers in the first round. And like I said this, I refrained myself from saying this because it's like when you have LeBron in the postseason, you just never know until he's really out of the postseason. So out of that kind of respect, I just wanted to make sure that it was like, okay, like they still have somewhat of a chance, but given how now they're down 3-0 and it's been over a year that they've actually been able to win a game against them, I don't think they have enough what it takes in the tank to come out on top. Like, I genuinely think this would be the last game in the series once they match up against them again and they go into game 4. I think this, like, it's really been up and down for the Lakers, but you can't get more down than this. And it's like it happens every single time. LeBron's teammates every single time let him down when it matters most. Because if he would have played a little bit better, then they wouldn't have been in this type of situation. Literally, all you had to do is just play a little bit better, and you would have ended up coming out on top. And it was just one guy that they needed the production from. They didn't even need Roy Hachimura's production for this game. And they just really needed D'Lo's. And with how he was talking and with how he's been talking, he was talking up a storm before Game 3. And he was chatting like, you guys saw me in Game 2. I'm going to do that same thing over in LA in Game 3. And he ends up scoring only 0 points. This is really bad coming in from D'Lo. And it's just like, when is it going to get any better? And it doesn't seem like it will. So you also have to think like what's going to happen like come the off season. Like this might be some news for D'Lo. Like the Lakers might not even try and get D'Lo in the next season, which ultimately might cause LeBron to wanting to leave. And there's going to be a lot of news that is going to be coming from the Lakers after this series, I think. And I'm very, skeptical on whether or not LeBron's going to stay on LA. But we'll see. But that's all that we have for this segment. So now I will be talking about the Knicks and the Sixers game in the second segment. And, the Sixers, they were able to steal a game behind... Well, not really steal a game. They were able to win a game in the series behind Joel Embiid and his scoring performance. So I'm going to go ahead and go over that game after this short break from this. So be sure to tune in to the second segment if you want to hear me talk about the Knicks and the Sixers in their playoff series. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about the Sixers game and their matchup against the New York Knicks. I really should be like, my sports takes, they really have to be studied because there are times where I can nail the take right on the coffin, and then there are times where the minute I say something, the exact opposite of that happens. Because I said that there was a possibility that the Lakers could win Game 3 and they end up losing embarrassingly. And then I say that there's no way that this series doesn't end in a sweep for the Knicks, and they end up losing in Game 3. So obviously, like, my takes, they definitely need to be studied. Especially, like, and then the other day, I said that the Miami Heat, they weren't going to win in this series, and here they are tying the series up 1-1 and giving them a solid chance, much more of a solid chance than the Lakers have given themselves. So, they need to be studied. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment to get your comments recognized. The link is gsmcsportsnetwork.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcsportsnetwork.net. And with that out of the way, we can go on and talk about the Knicks playing against the Sixers in this game. So, Joel Embiid, he was obviously very furious with the amount of calls he wasn't getting in the previous game and with the amount of missed calls that the refs were allegedly giving him. And he took it out on the Knicks and their roster, and he ended the game with 50 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. So, obviously, like, ironically enough, he ended up shooting a lot more free throws in this game than he did in any of the previous games. He shot 21 free throws in this in this game, and it obviously like that's a lot of free throws compared to that's a lot of free throws compared to the previous few games that he's been sort of forced to play. And obviously, when you're shooting a bunch more free throws in a game like this, obviously it's going to generate a lot more points. I'm obviously not saying that most of his points were generated off of free throws, because when you get rid of 19 of those free throw points, which are the ones that he scored off of, then he still ends the game with 31 points, which is obviously still very impressive. And his field goal percentage in this game, 13 of 19 from the field and 5 of 7 from 3, was also very efficient. So obviously, like, the Sixers, they won off of the back of Joel Embiid in this game. And Tyrese ended up helping. He ended up getting 25, 9 for 21 from the field. Kelly Oubre was 6 of 8 from the field with 15 points. Cameron Payne was 4 of 7 for 11 points. Tobias Harris was 4 for 10 with 8 points. And Kyle Lowry was 3 for 5 on 9 points. And when you're the Sixers, obviously, like, you got your back against the wall. You have to, every single game counts and every single game matters. So this was obviously a very big win for the Sixers, so they don't get forced into that 3-0 deficit like the Lakers have forced themselves into. Jalen Brunson actually played really well in this game. He ended the game with 39 points and 13 assists, so obviously, like, very impressive. Hart ended with 26 and 6. OG Anunoby ended with 17. And Isaiah Hartenstein ended with 14. And obviously, like, the shooting from Brunson, it was impressive, like 13 for 27 from the field. Obviously, that's really good, but it could have been a little bit better, and it could have been a lot closer for the team if he would have hit a couple more shots, which probably would have changed the results of this game. But you really can't really pin it on Jalen Brunson. He is just one player after all, and there were a bunch of other players who didn't really do well in the scoring column. DiVincenzo, he ended the game with only 5 points, 2 for 7 from the field. Bogdanovich ended the game 1 for 5 for only 5 points. And McBride ended the game 3 for 7 for only 8 points. And obviously, like, going against a team it's affordable to do that when you go up against a team that literally just has that one player, but there's also the fear and the thought that that one player can go off to a ridiculous degree, similar to this game right now. So they avoid the 3-0 deficit, and now they look to play New York again in their home court. It's obvious that Joel Embiid gets a much bigger advantage playing in the home court and playing in Philly than he does playing in any other arena in the NBA. He knows this. Obviously, this was part of the reason why he only plays Nikola Jokic in Philly. But the difference between him playing in home court and him playing in an away game is staggering. Like, it's literally like the make or break for the game at some points, because I don't think he would have had this kind of performance if he played in New York again. And, like, I understand he's an NBA player, but pressure still gets to them like any other normal human. And when you're playing in an away crowd, like, obviously that's going to impact the game in some sort of way. So the Knicks, they still, like, while they might have lost this game, they're still in a relatively good position to win out in the series. And maybe this away loss was what they needed, so that way they could end up closing out the series for good. They have to steal a game in Philly, and then they'd have to win a game at home if they look to close the series out as quickly as possible. But I thought that would happen, but after this home game and how Joel Embiid responded, I'm not entirely sure, because there's a huge chance that he could respond like this again, and the Knicks won't have any sort of answer for it. Now, one of the things that happened in this game, which I did not really like, was how Joel Embiid, when he was on the ground, he was pulling on Mitchell Robinson's foot, trying to drag him down, and sort of, it looked like he was trying to hurt him, and I genuinely did not like that play whatsoever. DiVincenzo said it was dirty. Josh Hart also had some comments to say about that, and it's been really aggressive for someone who likes to flop and to make a big show out of things. He has no problem in trying to hard foul anyone else just because he's angry. It literally looked like it was just a fit of anger that he had, and he just took it out on the nearest player. And I really think that sort of behavior is inexcusable from a grown athlete. I understand, it makes total sense to get upset at certain things, but trying to hurt somebody just because you're upset, I think that's a really bad example for a lot of your fans, and it's not really again, it's not setting a good example for any of the kids that are watching the game, because it's he's just enforcing the sort of notion that being dirty and just because you want to win at all costs is okay. And I genuinely do not like that whatsoever. And Joel Embiid, he's always been immature. If there's one thing about him, he's probably one of the most immature grown-ups that you'll ever see play basketball. The way he plays, it's childish, and the way he complains, it's also childish, and it's very odd seeing someone that tall be that childish. And it's these kinds of things are I don't really feel like they have a place in this league, if that makes sense. I genuinely do not like how I do not like sort of why this has been the approach to it. I don't like why I don't like the action that he did. I don't like the reasoning why he did that, and I don't like it being broadcasted live in front of hundreds of people, and I don't think it deserves to be broadcasted. He should have received a lot more than just a technical foul for that kind of play. I think if Draymond would have done that, he would have seen a suspension, and he would have been ejected from the game immediately. So the fact that Joel Embiid can sort of get away with that, I don't agree with it whatsoever. That might just be the New York bias in me talking, because it's he literally tried to directly injure one of the players on the team. But I really don't think if that would have happened to if any sort of Knicks player would have done that, I would have reacted the same way. And it ruins the series. Injuries, they really ruin playoff series, and there's always a lot of people now, it's very popular for people to put an asterisk on a lot of these playoff series that are because of factors like injuries or players not being able to play. That's something that really cannot be controlled, and they put asterisks on it, and it takes away from what the player or what the team was able to accomplish. So that's basically all I have to say about this game and the series. It's going to the next game is going to be played in Philly, so we'll see if they can if the Knicks can retake command of the series and win the next game, and then maybe win the next game at home in New York. But we'll see how it goes. But that's basically all I have for the second segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the third segment, where I will talk about the other game that happened last night, which is the Magic going up against the Cavs. And I'll talk a little bit about that matchup, as well as the implications. And then we will move on to our special fourth segment that I will reveal after the third segment. So I'll be right back after this short break, and stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about the playoff game that went down between the Orlando Magic and the Cavs. So the Orlando Magic, they ended up winning in a blowout 121-83. So anyone that follows them on TikTok already knows they're going to be spamming that song, Orlando Magic, Orlando Magic. And obviously, like, this was a huge win that they desperately needed. They did not want to go into the series being down 3-0, and they capitalized on that with a blowout win against the Cavs. And I was very surprised with this blowout. And I was also pretty surprised with how Paolo Banchero played in this game. He ended the game with 31 points and 14 rebounds and 5 assists. So, obviously, he was a very big reason as to why this team was able to come out on top in this game. They also, again, like, they still sort of struggle from, shooting a bunch of threes. But the Cavs, like, they were sort of lucky that the Cavs were a little bit worse shooting from three than they were tonight. And the Cavs, like, they were really cold in this game. Like, there wasn't really that many efficient shooters for the Cavs, like, in this game. And that's sort of been, like, the trend in this series. Like, a lot of the games between the Magic and the Cavs, they've been blowouts, and they've been rather, like, low-scoring games especially like on the Cavs side, when they're the winning team, it seems like it's more of like a defensive effort and a long 90s playoff game as opposed to like the high-paced scoring that we're so used to seeing in the regular season, as well as the high-volume three-point shooting that we're used to seeing. But these two teams, they sort of like I wouldn't say they take a different approach because they still take a lot of threes, but since the threes, they aren't falling as well or as often as they usually do, they have to resort to other means of scoring and other ways to put the ball in the hoop. So the Magic, they shot 13 for 37 from three as a team, which as a team, it's rather impressive, but again, it's like you're expecting a little bit better production, especially when you're playing at home. But when you're going up against the Cavs, who shoot 8 for 34 from three, just to like to sort of try and match your 3-point shooting. It's really like there's no need to have like to rely that much on the 3 ball if the other team isn't relying heavy on the 3 ball. And excuse me, but that's really been like a problem with the Cavs and their offense. Karis LeVert, he ended the game 5 of 13 for 15 points. Donovan Mitchell ended the game 6 for 16 with 13 points. And Evan Mobley ended the game 4 of 9 from the field with 10 points. Darius Garland ended 2 for 10 from the field, which, again, it's really not ideal when you're going up against this Magic team. What was happening with the Magic against the Cavs at home is happening against the Cavs now that the Cavs are the away team. It's like the Magic, they've found their shooting touch in this game as opposed to the Cavs, who were sort of struggling from the field in this game and struggling to hit a shot. And obviously, when you're going up against a team that's struggling to hit a shot, that gives you a huge advantage going into a game, and it allows you to like steal it from them. And obviously, like this isn't really considered a game that they stole because they were at home and it was really expected for them to win. Excuse me. I have hiccups. But regardless, like this was still a rather impressive win. Coming in from the Orlando Magic, Jalen Suggs ended up shooting 9 for 11 from the field and got 24. Excuse me. He had 24 points. Franz Wagner ended the game 6 of 12 from the field for 16 points. Markelle Fultz ended the game 4 of 6 from the field with 11 points. And Cole Anthony ended the game 4 of 7 from the field with 10 points. And obviously, like when you look at the rest of these like performances coming in from the Magic, it makes a lot more sense. And like when you look at the shooting splits from the Magic's roster compared to the Cavs roster, it makes a lot of sense as to why the Cavs were unable to win in this game. And this is obviously like one of the more sort of unpopular series, I guess you could say, because a lot of people aren't really as in tune for this series as they are for, like, let's say the Lakers in the first round, the Knicks in the first round. Not many people are really like batting that much of an eye on these teams, and I'm also like I'm going to completely be that guy and say that these games are rather boring, because most of the time it's like these games end in most of the time these are ending in upsets. And upsets, they're great when they happen for your team, but when you're looking at it from an entertainment perspective, it's really like it's not all that entertaining. And that's sort of been the reason as to why they haven't really been generating that many views, especially like with the Orlando Magic. Like they won a playoff game and there's barely been any media coverage coming from Orlando just because of that playoff win. And it's really like it doesn't make any sense to me, because it's like how could a team that's in Orlando not gain that much traction, especially after winning a game that was crucial to their season. So, like, it's not the same as the Nuggets series, where it seems like the Nuggets are just completely unfazed by whatever the Lakers throw at them. Like it seems like both of the teams are relatively seems that both of the teams are decent, and both of the teams can really pull away with it if the other team gives them a chance. And it makes the game a lot more enjoyable. It's just that a lot of these games that they've been playing, they've all, like I've said previously, they've all been blowouts. And when the team is giving them that chance, it's not like they can sort of like find a way to win later on in the game. That's sort of like that's not really been the theme. It's not like similar to how with Denver, it's like, okay, the Lakers jump out winning, but then they end up losing because Denver knows how to close out a game. And it's like, with the Magic and the Cavs, neither of those teams know how to effectively close out a game, so it becomes a little bit... so when a team gets a much bigger lead, it's not like the other team can play catch-up and expect to make a comeback. Like, it's not really expected for the Cavs to come back from being down by such a deficit against the Orlando Magic, especially so early in the game. And like literally right out the gate, the Orlando Magic started out with a 10-point lead, not a 31-point lead, but they started out the scoring 31-21 in the first quarter. And then in the third quarter, that's when Orlando really turned it on, and they were able to outscore the Cavs 35-16, which was ultimately the biggest difference maker in this game. That third quarter performance essentially drained the Cavs, and when you expect a team to sort of come out of the first half either strong or stronger and they don't, it becomes a little bit underwhelming, especially when you look at the Lakers games where it's like they go into the halftime, you expect them to come out strong with the same energy, but then they don't come out with that same energy. They sort of play a little bit lazier, and obviously it's like obviously with these games, it's like it becomes pretty underwhelming because you expect a lot of these playoff teams and you expect them to sort of like put up more of a fight in these series, especially with their season on the line. And there's really nothing that needs to be talked about like for this game because Orlando dominated like from the start, literally immediately like to start the game, they just dominated. And there's not really much that needs to be said about that because it's not like the Cavs were ever, it wasn't like the Cavs had any sort of chance of being able to come back, and it's not like the Orlando Magic seemed like they were going to give them a chance. Unlike where, with the Lakers, it seems like they always give Denver a chance and it always comes down to the wire. Doesn't matter how the game starts out or how the game finishes. And when a series goes like that, they tend to gain a lot more traction than a series that ends in just blowout after blowout after blowout after blowout. Like, I believe there was a, in the Western Conference, or actually no, I think it was in the Eastern Conference, the Hawks, they matched up against Miami, and literally every single game was a blowout. Not a single game was close, and whenever a team won, it was by a ridiculous 20, 30-point lead, and the lead would stay that way throughout the entirety of the game. And obviously, when you have a game like that, it gets rather boring to watch over and over and over and over again, especially when that's how the series goes. And it's a little bit tough with this Magic team. So I hope that they get a close game so that way I can follow these games a little bit more, because I'm not even going to lie, while this game was going on, I was more focused on the NFL draft as well as more focused on the Knicks game, because I thought the Knicks game was going to be a much more competitive game, which is what they've sort of shown for me in these last few matchups. But that's all I have for the matchups that happened last night. So now on the fourth segment, I'm going to be doing a little preview of the games that are going to be happening tonight. The Clippers are expected to match up against the Mavs. The Bucks are expected to match up against the Pacers, and the Timberwolves are expected to match up against the Suns. And now, since the script is a little bit flipped, and now the Mavs are going to be home, the Pacers are going to be home, and the Suns are going to be home. It introduces a whole different dynamic to the playoffs, and we'll see how each team can perform when they don't have that home court advantage or when they do have that home court advantage. So I will be right back after this short break for the playoff preview.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC basketball podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I did switch it up a little bit. I know I said I was going to look at the playoff games that were going to happen tonight. I'm going to do that, as well as acknowledge that Steph Curry has just been awarded Clutch Player of the Year for the NBA. It's a new award. Well, it's relatively new, I should say. They only started handing out this award like a year ago, or like a few years ago, and Steph Curry, he ended up winning Clutch Player of the Year award. This was obviously like his first ever Clutch Player of the Year award that he won. And I'm just looking at the list. Yeah, exactly. There were only two times that Clutch Player of the Year was even rewarded, and the first time was literally last year when it was De'Aaron Fox, who was having a phenomenal season with the Kings. But now Steph Curry, he ends up winning the Clutch Player of the Year award. So this is like, since it is pretty recently, this has been, excuse me, this has sort of been the argument to support the notion that Steph Curry hits a lot of clutch shots and he is a clutch basketball player, because there is a, why do the hiccups just attack me all the time? There is a stipulation around Steph surrounding his clutch shots, his shot selection, as well as his ability to knock down shots late in games, in the fourth quarter, in playoff games, things like that. And obviously, like when you win Clutch Player of the Year, it for the moment, it sort of like removes that the bias that a lot of the fans have about you, saying that oh, you're not a clutch player, because this award, it sort of shows that you are indeed a clutch player in the NBA, especially like to win this award. And a lot of the Curry fans, they're using this as sort of like an excuse as to, or a reason to argue that Steph Curry is a clutch player. And he might have been a clutch player this season, which like obviously like he was, but overall and throughout his career, that's sort of been a different story. And I don't want this Clutch Player of the Year award to be a narrative in the future that a lot of the media uses to justify a player being clutch and a player hitting these important shots, because one of the big stipulations for his lack of being clutch are the performances in the postseason, which there's a lot of them that Steph Curry has, where he sort of just doesn't really he doesn't hit as many like important shots as the team really expects, and he's never really been that kind of player to hit those important shots in those high leverage games. He can do that in the regular season, sure, but in those big games where you really need them, it's not like he's known for those kind of moments. Because remember how in 2015, where the Golden State Warriors, they only won because Kyrie suffered an injury to his kneecap and LeBron had to play with a very weak lineup. Then in 2016, he was missing shots that we saw him hit all season long. 2017, 2018, he was a distant third best player behind LeBron and Kevin Durant. 2019, he ended up blowing a wide open three, which had the chance to tie the game and even send the game into overtime, maybe even win the game for the Golden State Warriors, but he ended up missing. Then he ended up scoring 0 points in an overtime do-or-die game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Not to mention how he... someone just dropped their phone outside. Not to mention how he couldn't make a clutch basket against the Lakers last year when they played in the second round. And Steph Curry hasn't even won a playoff game without Klay Thompson. So there's a lot of these moments that there's a lot more moments where Steph Curry isn't really reliable in the fourth, more so than there's moments where he is. But this season was a little bit of a difference, and hopefully that doesn't really play into the summary of his entire career. And obviously I'm not trying to while I am trying to sort of I am talking down on Steph, but I'm talking down really on his career and more so on what the fans are trying to like portray and what the fans have been saying about his game and what they think about it. So it's really like it's more so that I'm talking down on like the media takes behind Steph as opposed to Steph himself, because I really do think that he deserves this award over a lot of the players that could have been selected for this award. And regardless, like it's really like it's really important for someone like Steph to sort of have this award, because then a lot of people can be like, oh, but he has a clutch player of the year, so it's like it's an important like highlight to his it's an important highlight and an important accolade to his legacy, given how he has that reputation where he's not a very good performer in the fourth. So it's like having that award there is proof of the hardware, I guess you could say. And not only that, saying that he has that award and LeBron doesn't have that award is just another thing that you can give in the comparisons. Even though, like, we all know, like, who's the more clutch player, LeBron doesn't have the hardware to really prove it, like how Curry has the hardware to prove it. And obviously, in these awards, like, they're just awards, like, for the regular season, and they don't really, like, have much. I guess you could say they're somewhat filler, because again, this award was literally just introduced last year. So it's more so filler, and it's just like to acknowledge a player that had a really good regular season and was really important to them. So it's not, I'm not trying to talk down on Steph or his game, but I do not agree with the notion that this award immediately nullifies him and all of the not so clutch situations that he's had in his career. But going off of those games, I did say that I was going to do a preview of all the playoff games that are going to happen tonight. So I'll go ahead and do that. I just wanted to like change that up because I just realized, oh, the clutch player of the year was announced and it was Steph. So the next playoff game that's going to happen is going to happen at 5:30 on ESPN. It's the Bucks going up against the Pacers, and obviously, like I've said before, that this series could really go either way. It could go to 7 games, despite the fact that the Bucks don't have Giannis. I do think that this is going to be a really tough task to sort of steal a game in Indiana after the embarrassing loss that they had at home. And it's going to ask a lot from Dame, and you got to ask a lot from the rest of the players to sort of like step up and hope to God that Giannis comes back for maybe Game 6 or Game 7, however many elimination games that you need, if he even can. And that's really going to be like the question for this series. Can the Bucks close out? And if they can't, can they steal a game in the hopes that they can make the series go on a little bit longer until Giannis gets here or until they end up winning a game at home? So again, this series, like a lot of different scenarios can play in. The Pacers, they are the favorite to win this game because, obviously, like being a home team immediately just makes you a favorite in the postseason, and it's going to be a really difficult task for the Bucks to keep the series alive in hopes that Giannis can come back. Next game is the Mavs against the Clippers. So the Mavs, they surprised the Clippers by beating them in the last game, 96-93. So they're going to go into Dallas, and obviously it's expected that they're going to come out winning given how they just won an away game. But with the Clippers, now that they have Kawhi, I feel like that puts another factor into the game that I wasn't really thinking about because I didn't think that they would have Kawhi this early in the series. So now anyone can win in these home or in these away games. And given how the series played last time, I don't want to count anyone out just yet, and I don't want to say that the Mavericks are going to win out these final home games like how I did last year, because last year, like I said, okay, the Mavericks, they come out 2-0 after playing 2 away games. They're going to win the next 2 games at home easily, but that ended up being the exact opposite. They didn't win a single home game in that entire series. And, like, I'm not going to, like, leave anything off of the table for this Clippers team. I feel like this series as well is going to go to 7 games, as well as the Bucks and Pacers series. Now, for the Timberwolves and the Suns series, I think this is going to go to 6 games instead of 7. I haven't really seen enough from Devin Booker or Bradley Beal to sort of say that they have what it takes to compete in the in this very big game. And it's really like it's really sad to see how they've regressed despite all of the big market moves that they've been making to try and make their team relevant now that they sort of have that relevancy once again. And obviously it's like you have to I have to like see it, and so far I haven't really seen it from Devin Booker or Bradley Beal. Especially like what really doesn't help Bradley Beal is now that he put a bunch more pressure on himself, saying like, oh, it's winning time now, and now it's like, okay, now it's winning time and now you're not winning, so it's like what gives. So I feel like this series is going to go to 6 games if the Phoenix Suns don't end up, but like they have to win out both of these games. And otherwise it's just going to be the exact same story last year where they split the season series, then they lost 1 game, but then they were going into game 6 expecting to win that game and force a game 7, but they end up losing at home in embarrassing fashion. And with this Suns team and how they've been disappointing, it's like, it's really difficult to sort of see their trajectory go in a different way for this season, given their recent struggles. So that's basically all I have to say about this about the 4th segment. That's the Clutch Player of the Year. Those are the playoff matchups that are going to happen tonight, and that's basically it for this show and this segment. So thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and to leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, please remember to leave a comment in using the link in the description or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment to get your comments recognized in the link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And that is basically it for the show. Thank you all once again. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the